Welcome, everybody, to Mom Street USA. My name is Jackie, aka Wishes Mama. And on today's episode of Mom Street USA, we are tackling something that I think all parents to some degree deal with when going to the Disney parks, and that is trying to get your group up and going in the morning. So, the goal for today is 5 tips for Disney rope drop, and hopefully, I'll give you some good things to think about or some insight, or maybe just confirm some of the things that you may already be doing to help get your group up and going in the morning. So, here's the thing. Rope drop can be a crucial part to the success of any Disney World vacation. But when you are traveling with kids, or with a wide age range, or a larger group, larger family group, friend group, it can be really hard to get everybody up and moving in the mornings to be at the parks in time if you are somebody that wants to utilize the morning hours for your for all of your rides that you want to get on. So this episode is aimed at giving 5 simple but hopefully helpful tips for getting your family out the door for rope drop during your Disney vacation. And I will say that I would think that these could apply pretty much to either coast, right? I have experience obviously with Disney World, but I think all of these can also apply to Disneyland, and also any other theme park that you're going to, if it's Universal, if it's any of the other, if it's SeaWorld, if it's Busch Gardens, if it's Six Flags, if it's any of those places that you may go on a theme park trip, right? So before we get to our Disney kind of specific tips, I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page about what rope drop is. So let's answer that question. Rope drop is really just getting to the park prior to the official park open, so that way you are ready to go to your first ride immediately when the park opens. So this term came from previously for years and years and years and years at the Disney parks. The cast members would legitimately have these big, long, thick ropes that they would hold to keep the crowds where they wanted to keep them. Because there were certain things about, we'll talk about early park entry here in just a moment, or there used to be early morning magic hours, so they had to use these ropes to kind of keep the correct people in the correct space in the morning hours during the park. And then whenever it was ready for, the time was ready for the park to open, they would literally drop the rope or, wind it up, that type of thing. So that's where kind of the rope drop term came from. So most people will use the rope drop term, however, to also refer to early park entry. So they are different. Rope drop is the time that the park officially opens to all guests. Early park entry is the time that the park opens to resort guests. So, early park entry is the extra 30 minutes prior to the official park open that Disney resort guests get. So, again, despite them being technically different, oftentimes people will use that term rope drop interchangeably, just because that's the term that's always been used in the mornings. So, for this episode, we are basically talking about both situations, as these tips will apply to your group no matter what time you are able to gain access for the ride. So, if you are staying on property, think about this rope drop being your early park entry time. If you are staying off property, rope drop is truly rope drop for you because it is park open time. So, again, we're kind of referring to both at the same time with these tips that I'm going to give you for today. Now that that has been handled, let's get to the actual tips that we have to hopefully give you some things to think about when you're prepping either before your trip or like the night before you want to get up for rope drop. So, the first tip that I have is you really have to know your group and plan accordingly. So, if your group gets up easily and is ready in time, no problem, great. You are probably in the minority because I know I speak for myself and a lot of our Mom Street community here where it is really, really, really tricky to get everybody up and moving in the morning, especially the further you get in your trip, right? Day one may be super easy because everybody's, up and ready to go and wants to get into the parks for the first time during your trip. But you get to day 3 or 4 or longer if you're lucky to have a longer vacation, and it gets infinitely harder to get everybody up and moving. So you really have to know your group, okay? And with that, can determine your transportation. So this is kind of where I'm going with the know your party has to do with what kind of transportation options are you going to be utilizing in the morning. So if your group can get up and moving, no problem, you are probably fine to just take your Disney transportation that is offered to you because Disney transportation takes longer, right? It just does. You have to wait in lines, you have to wait for buses to come, those types of things. The buses, the Skyliner, if you're on a Skyliner resort, those can take a while. You definitely want to be at your bus stop a minimum of 60 minutes, if not earlier, closer to probably 90 minutes before you want to be at the park. Especially if it's busy times, if it's a holiday weekend, if it's, Halloween time is really, really busy. The holidays are really, really busy. You're looking at least probably 90 minutes before you want to actually be in the park. Okay. The Skyliner line kind of alongside of that bus conversation. It does move quick, but it can get very, very long, very, very fast. So you want to be there again an hour before you want to be at the park because you want to make sure that you give yourself enough time because you also are going to have to switch lines potentially depending on where on the Skyliner route you are. If you're somebody that is already at that central hub at Caribbean Beach, you've got it made because that's one less trip that you have to plan for. But those lines can be long at the hub too because you've got people coming from all directions on that Skyliner ride, trying to crisscross, right? So you really have to be aware of that. But do remember that it's continuous. So don't get too alarmed if the line seems really, really, really astronomically long for the Skyliner because it does move fairly continuously because guests that need help getting in and out of the gondolas are pulled off to a different line. So that way they can continue loading other guests and things like that. So just keep that in mind. And also remember that the Skyliner drops you at International Gateway if you're going to Epcot. So plan accordingly for that. Drops you at the front of Hollywood Studios and the International Gateway kind of back entrance to Epcot if you are taking it to Epcot. So that's kind of if your group is able to get up and moving, no problem. You have no, you're not overly concerned about time because you know that your group is good to go with that. Now, if your group happens to be one of those that really struggles to get up in the morning, you might want to really consider what type of transportation you're going to be utilizing in the mornings to get to the parks. Having a car or renting a car is a great way to save a few extra minutes or to give yourself a few extra minutes in the room if you need them. Um, the other thing that you can consider is if it's within your budget and it works for your travel party, booking something like an Uber or a Lyft to get to the parks is another option that you do have. Again, if it's in your budget, if it's something that you want to utilize for your trip. Um, those are things to keep in mind. If I am staying somewhere and I want to get to Magic Kingdom, I also then have to plan on, okay, where do I get dropped off? If I'm ride sharing, I get dropped off at the TTC. If I'm parking, I park at the TTC. So that is either a monorail or a ferry boat to get over there, right? So things to consider with that. Unless you are using the Lyft app and purchasing a minivan, which is the specialty Disney transportation service for Lyft. Those minivans do drop you at the bus loop. So if you want to splurge or it's well within your budget, a minivan is your best bet from getting to get from your resort to whatever park you're going to because they are going to have a better drop off and pickup location. So, again, all things to consider depending on what you think your group is going to be able to do in the mornings. If you think they're going to be easy to get up, Disney transportation is fine. If not, you may want to reconsider that. Just a thought to have as you are planning your transportation options from your resort. And that also might be something that you look into considering what resort you're staying at. Because if you know that you're somebody who like, "Ooh, we don't get up super early, we definitely need a resort that is within close proximity to our favorite park." Maybe Epcot's your favorite park. Well, then somewhere like the Boardwalk, or Yacht and Beach are a great option if that's within your budget. If you are someone that, Magic Kingdom is your favorite park, you're gonna look at those Magic Kingdom resorts that are on the monorail or have a quick boat ride, to get to and from the park. So just lots of things to consider, and it may sound a little silly to, like, think about rope drop affecting your resort, but transportation is a huge aspect of what resort we stay at anytime that we go, regardless of that. So just little things to think about in addition to what you're already thinking about when you're planning your trip. So let's talk now about our second tip for rope drop at Disney. And that is to be sure to prep or re-prep your park bag before bedtime. So I know it's hard when you get back to your resort room after a long park day. You just want to, do your shower and get in bed and go to sleep. But taking 5 extra minutes to repack your park bag will be so much easier for you at night than it will be in the hustle bustle craziness of the morning after you get up. So, things to consider: replenishing any snacks that you carry in there. And these are snacks for every age because, regardless of what your food plan is, maybe you're planning to eat fully in the parks and you're not worried about doing extra snacks and things in your bag. I still highly suggest you have some sort of little snack bag in your parks bag, even if you do plan to eat in the parks, because you never know when the hanger is going to hit, and that can be anywhere from infants and babies all the way up to grandparents that travel with you, right? You never know when someone might just need a little bit of something to get them through this, line that you're waiting in, or get them through until the parade coming because you're just hanging out on Main Street waiting for the parade to come, or fireworks, or whatever, or on the way back to the room. That's where I find it to be the most helpful, is at the end of the night, I will sometimes realize like, "Ooh, I didn't eat enough throughout the day. I am so hungry." And sometimes by the time you get back to your resort room, your the food court or the grab and go or wherever you are, it may not be open. So just thinking about those things, and doing that the night before, because otherwise in the craziness of the morning, something's gonna get forgotten, right? So repacking the snacks, repacking your bag, refilling your water for the next day, and then putting it in the fridge if you're somebody that likes really cold water, or, just prepping and laying out your water bottles the night before can be a big help as well. Um, Replacing sunscreen in your bag. We are known to travel with 2 different sets of sunscreen. One stays in the room and one goes in our park bag. So double check that your one in your park bag isn't running low. Make sure you've got that. Hand sanitizer, all of those kind of consumable things you may be using throughout your park day. Make sure that you're restocked on that. And also be sure if your kiddos have their own bags, that either you're checking them or you're walking them through checking them too, right? Because maybe they're carrying their own snacks and you need to make sure that they replenish what they're going to want for the next day, those types of things. And also the stroller. That is one that I feel like gets forgotten because we are even known to, like, we get back to the room with our stroller, we just push it over into the corner and we leave it for the next day. And then we get up the next morning and we're like, "Oh, we gotta get all this stuff out of the bottom of the stroller," and then it just gets thrown around the room and lost into the abyss of our Disney resort room. So, unpacking that at the end of the night, putting things back kind of where they belong or close to, or even just, like, resetting things out on your dresser or the table in your room, to be re-put into the stroller in the morning can be really, really helpful as well. So, second tip, repacking your bags and then some, before bedtime to save yourself a few minutes in the morning so you have some extra hands to help get kiddos ready. Our third tip for getting ready for rope drop at Disney is to have everyone's outfits organized and ready to go. We use the Ziploc bag packing method for our kids, where they have in their suitcase, every day is in a gallon Ziploc bag, because my kids are still little enough, although my son is getting to the point where his clothes almost don't fit in a gallon Ziploc bag. But we will put them all in a Ziploc bag that has the date on it, and that is what they know that they are to wear that day. Packing cubes work the same way, especially if you can label them somehow, even if it's just like a piece of masking tape or painter's tape and just put the day on it. This makes them getting up and dressed so self-sufficient in the morning. Now, if you've got littles that can't do it themselves, totally makes sense. But that makes your parent brain much quicker in the morning to go, okay, today's Tuesday. Here's their Tuesday outfit. Let me throw it out and get it ready. When my kids were little, and like infants and even early toddlers, I would also pack an extra set of clothes in every day just in case we needed them. And that was something else that I could replenish into my bag. Now, that would happen the morning of as they were getting dressed. If they had two outfits in their bag, I would put one out for them to wear, then I would put one into our diaper bag or park bag for the day. But that makes it so much easier. Now, we are not a family that does like truly matching outfits. But we like to theme our outfits to the park, so we're all kind of coordinated. So, like, when we go somewhere like Hollywood Studios, we're gonna do, Toy Story or we're gonna do Star Wars, that type of thing. When we go somewhere like Magic Kingdom, we might do like, my husband and I might do a Haunted Mansion, or we might do like, my daughter and I might do like a matching princess outfit, or we might all do, like, Mickey and Minnie stuff. So we like to kind of coordinate our characters. We don't necessarily do, like, true matching outfits. But that also saves us when we've got them in the packing cubes or Ziploc bags. It saves us a ton of time trying to remember what day is what and figuring out who's supposed to wear what on which day, right? That work, that legwork has already been done for us by the time we get to the unpacking. So it makes it so much easier to just grab out the one that we know we need for the day. And then we are good to go when it comes to that. It also alleviates some of the clothes being kind of thrown around the room, especially if you're someone who has mousekeeping come in every day. It keeps everything really organized, and so my kids' stuff, we usually leave in their suitcases because it is ziplocked, and it's already just ready to go, nice and organized and kind of filed, which will surprise no one that that's how I pack my kids because that's just how my brain works. And then my husband and I will utilize the dresser drawers. So that's typically what we end up doing with that. The other thing to consider is also laying out shoes, making sure, like, if your shoes got wet, making sure you have dry shoes for the next day because overnight may not be enough time for your shoes to dry depending on how wet they got. If you got caught in a rainstorm, if you went on Tiana's or Cali River Rapids and your shoes got soaked. So we will usually like by the door, but like not in the way of the door. Obviously, we will like lay out shoes. And also thinking about laying out kids' stuff. So, magic bands. My kids each have two different magic bands. So, the night before, I always ask them which one they want to wear, and I make sure I throw that on the charger. My kids like to use the little slap bracelet cutie cuffs on their bags. So, when we repack their bags, we'll also include whatever guy they want, whatever little stuffy they have, ears or hats. My son likes to wear hats. My daughter has a bunch of ears. So, we lay those out as well. All of that prep work we do the night before. And I know it sounds like a lot, but if you've prepped the prep work, right? If you pack them in the packing cubes or in the Ziploc bags, then that makes that process super fast. So I repack my park bag and I lay out all of our clothes. It takes me probably less than 10 minutes to do that. And I can start to do that, or my husband can start to do that while we're getting the kids showered and ready for bed. So it really doesn't take more time than what our routine would already take in the evening because we are kind of dividing and conquering. Now, if you are a solo parent traveling with kiddos or solo adult traveling with kiddos, it makes it a little bit trickier. You might have to uh unfortunately give up, 10 minutes of sleep at that point, but I think those 10 minutes are worth it to avoid the confusion and chaos in the morning when it comes to that. So having everyone's outfits, accessories, all of that organized and ready to go, laid out however makes sense in your room in the space that you have, I think is a huge win for prepping for your rope drop morning. Right, number 4 on our list of 5 tips for Disney rope drop is kind of in line with the other tips that I've already given, and that is to preload your in-room coffee maker or or plan out your breakfast plan in the morning. Again, this is something with your breakfast plan that you've probably likely already thought about and already planned it accordingly for, but uh getting the coffee ready in the morning, especially if you are someone that was like, I cannot function until I have my coffee. Perfect. It's already preloaded, ready to go. The first thing you do in the morning, literally, you get out of bed, you walk over, you hit the button to start your coffee maker, so it's already ready to go. I think that is a little tiny thing that can make a big difference for people in the morning so they don't have to, like, open the package and put it in and get the water and all that. Just do it ahead of time, right? Just do it ahead of time. And the other thing is breakfast. So a couple options that I would suggest for rope drop breakfast. This really depends on what park you're going to and what your transportation method is. If you are someone who is Ubering, lifting, minivanning, or driving, you likely have just enough time that you could mobile order at your food court, like for these, they usually open at 7 a.m. for the 7 a.m. uh window, and then just grab it and kind of eat it on your way. Now, you don't wanna eat in an Uber, you don't wanna be unkind to the driver, so if you're taking an Uber, a Lyft, a minivan, you might wanna eat it quick in the food court before you head out, grab a quick sandwich or something like that. But if you are someone who is driving, take it in your car with you. So think about what you're ordering, right? Like Mickey waffles don't travel, nearly as well as something like a quick breakfast sandwich or something like that, but just something to consider when it comes to that. Or making sure that you have breakfast options in the room. And this is what we typically do just because it's so much easier to coordinate, especially because we typically do have a car when we go down to Florida. So it's just easier to have the kids have cereal or some granola bars or Pop Tarts or whatever is quick that you know your kids will like that will fill their bellies up at least for the morning. And then we usually plan an early lunch anyway, and we have snacks. So, like, if they don't eat a ton in the morning, not the end of the world when it comes to that. But just kind of planning ahead or planning enough time like Magic Kingdom, you can technically get to Starbucks before even early entry starts. The line in there is always insane. So again, planning enough time to make sure that you have the time you need to get to where you want to go. But just planning accordingly and making sure everybody knows what the plan is for breakfast, especially if it's like you and your significant other, a partner, a friend, whoever you're traveling with, like make sure all of the grown-ups know the plan for breakfast. So that way, as you guys are kind of whirling around the room in the morning, everybody knows. And like what we will do is again, we will divide and conquer. So like if I'm like monitoring the kids getting up and ready, then my husband will, he knows the plan for breakfast and he'll prep it all and get it ready at the table for the kiddos to eat once they're kind of dressed and everything for the day. So just having a plan, making sure that everybody knows what your plan is always a really good idea when it comes to breakfast in your rooms. So, number 5 now on our tips for Disney rope drop is, and this is a really big one that people maybe don't always think about. I have found that it's really helpful to give yourself an extra 15-minute buffer for the time you want to leave the room. So, for example, if you're trying to leave the room at 7 and you know that it takes your group an hour to get ready, let's say, you need to bump that up to an hour and 15 because I feel like no matter what with kids at any age, and maybe it's just me, maybe this is a me problem, but now I'm just putting it on your radar in case it's not just a me problem, but you want to give yourself an extra 15 minutes because it's getting all of your shoes on, getting your bags, packing, repacking the stroller if you forgot something, or getting sunscreen on, or whatever it is that may get forgotten in your normal getting ready routine. You want to give yourself an extra 15 minutes because I feel like every time we get up for rope drop, we always leave about 10 to 15 minutes later than what I wanted. So again, might be a me problem, might be a universal problem. Either way, I'm putting it on your radar. Because also you want to make sure you plan your time to leave plenty of time for transportation, which we talked about already, but also walking from transportation, depending on what park you're going through security. Those lines move, but they can be slow. Also, getting to be able to tap in at the tap style and actually getting that to function with your kids. I always remind people, I know that the kids will want to tap in. Use your fingerprint. Let them do the Mickey part and you use your finger. Goes a lot quicker that way. Um, and then also getting yourself into position to go to your first ride. So all of that time, transportation time, walking time, security time, tapping in time, positioning time, all of that needs to be included in your time that you're planning for in the morning. So an extra 15 minutes, I promise you, is worth it because it will give you just that extra little buffer in case the buses are running further behind, in case it takes an extra 20 minutes for your Uber to come. Who knows what might be the problem, right? Um, so just an extra 15 minutes can be really helpful. Now, the last thing that I just said was talking about, uh, oh, I almost forgot. The other thing you also want to plan for is when you get to the park, and again, this is maybe where some of that extra 15 will come into handy too. If you need to plan for photo time, we talked a few episodes with our good friends Sarah and Ty about taking photos early, right? Taking photos early in the morning to make sure that you get them before everybody is sweaty or there's Mickey ice cream bar on your kiddo's shirt. Take your pictures early. So planning time for that. If you're going to need a bathroom break when you get in, or you're just going to want to preemptively take one before you start running to a ride, whatever else your group may need, again, that is going to be the time that you use in the morning. So that extra 15 minutes will allow you to have some extra time to do that and not feel quite so rushed and hectic trying to get to your first ride. Now, here's the last thing. Well, not the last thing. Here's another thing I want to mention. And this is kind of like my bonus tip, my number 6, if you will, for my tips for rope drop is have a plan. And this will surprise no one that this is on my list because having a plan when you go to the Disney parks is so important, especially in the morning. So I always suggest to anybody that I talk to about a Disney trip that they have at least 3 to 5 rides at each park that they know they want to go to and that are their top priority. Because if you are utilizing rope drop, whether that be early entry rope drop or standard rope drop, you want to make sure you know where you're going because you will waste precious seconds if you have to stop in the middle of a walkway and go, "Where do you wanna go?" "I don't know, where do you wanna go?" "Maybe we should go here." "Oh, maybe we could go here." You don't wanna do that with your early morning time. Those hours are so key to getting on a ton of attractions. So have a plan. Be sure you know exactly where you want to go for each park. And again, it doesn't have to be an hourly plan for the entire day, but at least have 3 to 5 rides at every park that are your top priority so that way you can just work your way down. And then you have to just keep going through. Yes, Jules in our live chat here just said, and please don't stop in the walkway. Exactly. Pull off to the side, but hopefully you won't even have to because you'll know your plan, you'll know what rides you're going to, and you'll be able to knock out hopefully at least 3 rides early in the morning before you start your lightning lanes or before you stop for an extra snack or before you can like take a break and do other things that you want to do, meet a character, go to a show, whatever it is. Just you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. So I cannot stress that enough that you need to have a plan. Now, just briefly, let's talk about my suggestions for rope drop. Now, we have done several park day itinerary episodes. So we have gone over recently again here all of the Disney parks. We've also gone over the 3 Universal parks in Orlando as well and kind of given you our suggestions for rope drop and for like where to go first and second and all of that. But just briefly, so if you want more information, go to those episodes, hop back a couple months, and you'll find them in our archives that are available everywhere you are watching or listening to us, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all those places. They're there. But let's talk about where I do suggest you go. So if you are doing rope drop at Epcot, tons of good options at Epcot. Again, just based on what your top priority is. Guardians of the Galaxy. If you have early entry, Guardians of the Galaxy is a great choice, and Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. Both of those for early entry are a great option. If you're someone that is using regular rope drop for park open, Frozen is not a terrible idea, and Test Track is not a terrible idea. You'll still probably have 30-minute lines at rope drop, but that's better than 90-minute lines, right? So those are some options at Epcot. At Animal Kingdom, I always suggest heading to Avatar. If you've got early entry, you want to do Flight of Passage, followed by Navi River. Those would be my two options during early entry. Now, if you don't have early entry in Animal Kingdom, unfortunately, those are going to be a lot harder to get on, especially Flight of Passage. Navi River might not be terrible at rope drop time if you go there immediately. Um, but I would suggest your best option if you are doing park open rope drop at Animal Kingdom to be the safari. It usually opens either right at park open or about 15 minutes later, but they'll start loading the queue. So if you go there immediately, you're looking at probably a 15 to maybe 20-minute max. Most of the time, it's just walking through the queue. By the time you get there, they're ready to load, because that queue takes a little while to kind of walk back to the loading station for that one. But those would be my suggestions for Animal Kingdom. At Hollywood Studios, if you've got early entry, it's gotta be Slinky Dog. Uh, I really don't suggest you rope drop Rise of the Resistance unless you are willing to wait if it goes down, because it doesn't like to open in the mornings. So if you're willing to risk that, you can go to Rise of the Resistance, but I highly suggest doing Slinky Dog. If you don't have early entry at Hollywood Studios, I would suggest rope dropping Sunset Boulevard. So, um, Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster. Do keep in mind Rock and Roller Coaster does have some downtime, starting here very soon as we're recording this. By the time this airs, actually, I think Rock and Roller Coaster will have closed for its refurb. But something like Tower of Terror is a great option if you are just utilizing regular park entry. And then for Magic Kingdom, this one is a little tricky, also because you have so many options. If you're doing early park entry rope drop, I would do Peter Pan or Seven Dwarfs. Unfortunately, that's where everybody is going to head back in Fantasyland, but that just is what it is. If you are doing regular park rope drop, anything over in Adventureland, so that could be Jungle Cruise, that could be Tiana's, that could be Big Thunder Mountain when it opens, hopefully soon. Those are all really great options for that. Um, Tiana sometimes has an issue waking up in the morning, so keep that in mind as well. But anything over on that side is a great option. Or Tron is an option because Tron does not open during early entry. Now, there is likely to be a line already formed at Tron by the time you get there for regular park rope drop, so keep that in mind. But again, a 30-minute line is better than a 90-minute line. So it just depends on how your group wants to spend their morning. Some of that also depends on like if you've got lightning lanes or multi-pass, single pass, all of that. You got to plan accordingly and kind of decide what makes sense and what you want to do based on your list that you have. So those are my generic quick answer suggestions for when it comes to rope drop with that. And again, if you want more information about like itineraries and where to go when and what to focus on and things like that. Those one-day park strategy episodes that we did a few months back are your guide for every park. I'm also finalizing. I'm a little behind. Promised you guys I'd get you these by the end of 2025, and it just didn't happen. But I am finalizing the rest of the graphics that go with those. So here shortly, I will have the Universal ones up and ready. The Disney ones are up on our Patreon account and also on our Discord channel over on the Walrus Carp Pocket Fam Discord. So those are up there for Disney. And shout out to Vinny who realized that I missed Test Track on ours that I posted. So that has been remedied and posted again there for you. But the Universal ones I'll have up here very shortly. So keep an eye out for those if you are a visual person and you'd like to see it as we kind of chat about it in those episodes. Those are coming very, very soon for you. But that's the short and sweet version of where I suggest you rope drop when it comes to that. So that kind of wraps up our official list. But before we completely wrap up this episode, I do have just a little bonus mention and bonus thought for you to consider. Um, if your travel party, your family, your friends, whoever you are with, are not rope drop people, you may have to find a happy medium. So if you've got a group that is just not morning people, you've got people that are more night owls than early risers, you may have to find a happy medium. Maybe you pick one day that you know you want to rope drop. And I would suggest either Magic Kingdom or Hollywood Studios if you are picking and choosing. Those 2 parks I feel like are the most worth it to get up and rope drop. Animal Kingdom, the lines kind of fluctuate throughout the day. Animal Kingdom is a good one to go to for the last couple hours that the park is open. And Epcot the same way. The evening hours or like mid-afternoon hours, things do kind of come down weight-wise. So that's a good option for like not rope dropping or using lightning lanes or whatever your kind of plan is for those. But um, you don't want to force them, or I should say, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I highly suggest you don't force those people to rope drop every single morning. And then you can kind of temper your expectations on what rides you may or may not get on, depending on how many days and what parks, and if you're doing lightning lanes, and what you think your family can get up early for, right? You just really have to kind of know your group. This circles back to literally the first thing that we talked about is just know your group, know what they're capable of, and just plan accordingly to make sure that you are still able to experience everything that your group wants to experience, but you're not going to have really, really grumpy people around you by the time you get to day 3 because you're not letting them live their best night owl life and you're forcing them to be the early bird. So, just things to keep in mind when it comes to that is just making sure that you're not pushing too hard, you are kind of giving and taking a little bit, giving them some afternoon time off, all of those things that we always talk about on Mom Street to make sure that you are not burning them out by day 3 or 4. We have said from day 1 of Mom Street that your 3rd day at Disney is always the hardest. So planning a sleep in morning, planning a half day resort day, planning a Disney Springs day on that 3rd day is so important, especially if you've got a 5 or 6 day vacation planned. Now, if your vacation's a little shorter, you may not have the liberty to do that, but you just want to make sure that you are still giving those people plenty of chances to get caught up on sleep so that way you don't have a giant grump by the end of your Disney vacation because that's not super magical and we want you to have the most magical time that you can. So that is kind of my rundown and my thoughts on the 5, really 6 tips for making your mornings more magical when it comes to Disney World rope drop. Thank you guys all so much for joining me for this episode of Mom Street USA. If you've got questions or need help with planning a trip or have comments, you can always find me momstreetusa@gmail.com. You can reach out via our Patreon account. We are Mom Street USA over there as well as our social media. So please reach out. We'd love to hear from you with some of the episodes we have going forward. Speaking of that, before we officially sign off for today, let's talk just briefly about what is coming next. So next up on our list of topics, we are going to jump into some IP specific topics in that we are going to be talking about the perfect Star Wars day at the Disney parks. So, next episode, we are going to be highlighting where you can find all of the different Star Wars themed things at all of the Disney parks. We are going to talk about Disney World and Disneyland. So, definitely join us for that if you are someone who is a Star Wars fan. We want to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the Star Wars stuff that they have in the parks. So, we'll be chatting about all of the different options and what characters can be found where and what timelines and all that kind of stuff. So that is coming up next. But for today, that is the end of our episode. Thank you again all so much for all of your support and for always showing up and being here and being such wonderful members of our Mom Street community. I will catch you all on the next episode. Bye, everyone.